actually hundreds of thousands of years with working with stone tools, is they did it in a way that got their kids to be able to survive into the next generations. Realizing that people lived this way for centuries and millennia and actually hundreds of thousands of years with working with stone tools, is they did it in a way that got their kids to be able to survive into the next generations. I'm not certain we're doing that anymore, right? And I think we need to use this reminder of this past kind of existence on our planet for humanity as a way, not to say that we can just jump back to it, because we've got almost 8 billion people on the planet now.
We only know today, we don't know tomorrow. So if we're taking today with us and we go, and you guys never know nothing about this place, you guys ain't gonna know. Today we get to see what is here in this lower elevation, not way up on the quarry up on Mauna Kea, but stones that came from Mauna Kea, all the way down here at 3,000 feet elevation from the ocean. So this is knowledge that needs to be passed on to you guys, the future generations, now while we still can.
There's a couple things going on. One is that because this soil down here is so acidic, you know, all these leaves, when they decompose, they're making humic acid. And the humic acid interacts with even the Mauna Kea basalt. And it weathers it and it oxidizes it and it'll turn gray. So like if we took this, we're not going to do it, but if we took this and we broke it, it's going to be black on the inside. This is again what I'm saying about Johnny Boy and his eyes. We've just passed by millions of rocks and he stops at this one, right? And he goes, hey, look at this rock. And he's right. This is
that one will look like one edge.
Yep.
You know what, when we find edge, it's like you say these say grayish and soft.
Yeah. It feels
like how you say the acidic.
Yeah, but that's just the soil that's doing that. So if it was fresh Mauna Kea stone, it would still be dark and black. You guys should.
We're doing. All right. Hi. Aloha. I'm Peter Mills. I'm a professor in the anthropology department at University of White Hilo, and I'm here with Johnny Boy Cardoza, who I met, I don't know, well over a decade ago. And we're up at about 3,000 feet in the forest on the Hamakua coast. And Johnny Boy, who is up here, came across the site where there are all of these flakes from making adzes that were scattered on the surface of the forest floor. And it's amazing to me that he even spotted them. But Johnny, why don't you just tell people about how you found this place to begin with?
Well, the first time I came up here, I was hunting long ago. It's over 30 years ago. And I started to see the flakes. The forest was totally different back then. This spot right here had a nice grass flat spot. You know, grass growing here was real nice and a little bit more open and whatnot. And I seen the flakes on the ground and wasn't sure what I was looking at. And I went back to my dad and I told him about the flakes, and he told me probably just was an overflow from the river, since we're right next to the river. Something kept on bringing me back to this spot. Every time I would walk, I would end up right back to here. And so I started looking at the site, and I sat down and I said to myself, with all these flakes, they had to be here more than one night.
So up here on the forest floor, you know, most rocks are just going to be either rounded cobbles or bedrock that's sort of eroded down and sort of been moved around a little bit, and some of it might get a little broken or fractured. But usually when they're in these thin pieces like this, lots of times you can see that they're intentionally driven off by people. And flake, we have names for all these different parts of it, but like this flake right here is where this stone got hit. That's called the platform. This is called the bulba force behind it. This is the ventral surface, or basically pretend that this is a big chunk of rock and this is a smaller chunk of rock. And so if you're working in adze, you're taking a hammerstone and you're taking the big chunk and you're working away at the edges and you smack it right there. So that's the platform that gets hit. This is the ventral surface, or what was inside the rock. And this out here is what we call the dorsal surface. Now the dorsal surfaces are really sort of key to tell a lot about what's going on with these guys. Because if in fact they're working a string cobble, this dorsal surface will still have that rounded sort of cobble surface on it. If instead what it is from a finished adze, you'll see if, let's say, they had a complete finished adze and they were up here in the forest and they were working at fixing an adze that they'd already made somewhere else, this dorsal surface is going to be finely polished. It's going to be covered in fine sort of polish from them grinding the adze down. But the dorsal surface on these flakes, so far, out of the 4 that we just picked up, and when we were here before, what they have on the dorsal surface are all these things that we just call other flake scars. In other words, that before this flake came off with a big chunk of rock, they'd already driven off a couple more flakes on this back side, but it hasn't been ground yet.
More than one night. So I start looking around. Hey, I find a fireplace. And when I found a fireplace, I was thinking, this is where they was making one adze here. So they, and through the years, I found out that, hey, they had on Hapu camp. That was their camp. They had a nice log cabin made out of the Hapu logs. And they was working here steady. The site is a nice site to actually work with logs here, right here. You can actually take them that way. You can take them across the gouge. You could cross here. You could go any direction from this spot. And why they chose here? Well, it was a real nice spot for the river right there. And God knows this place was real beautiful 200 years ago. A little blue reading. What do you think? Possibility. Look at the stones round, circle. And you know what the Hawaiians, they had lined the pitch with stone. On the bottom stone. If you don't make one stone bottom in this forest, the fire can travel underground.
Well, this is what I like about Johnny Boy, man. I'm so tired and watching all the branches coming up in my face. He's walking through here and he's spotting this stone, this stone, this stone, this stone, this stone, this stone. And these guys in this, like, it's not a perfect circle, and this guy might be outside, yeah? But if you can, your eye can start drawing a circle right here. And maybe that's, it sort of looks like a campfire place. No saying that it's from 1700s, no, could be 1860s, you know, it could be Hapu, sort of gatherers or anything else, but sure looks like campstones to me, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I find adze right close to the fire pit before in different places in the forest.
One of the things I like to point out when I take students places is, like, I'm an archaeologist, and that means that I know how to analyze, and I certainly know how to identify sites and try to spot them, but different people have good eyes for it, and I think hunters, you know, people, I could walk this woods for 200 years, and I could easily walk by this 100 times before I see it. You've got the eye. You can
my
spot
daughter had sea star. Dad, look the ear. And I kind of like, you know what I mean, brush her off, like, you know what I mean. You cannot really be see. Hey, she will identify some important stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just that you cannot overlook anybody, especially when you're in one group. They might see something that you cannot see and point it out to you, and then, oh my God, look at that, it's right.
Absolutely. And slowly over time you learn that different people are looking different places.
In most cases, you would picture that people would come here with finished adzes, but in this particular case, just given that all of the flakes that are on the ground, you can tell that they came off from making adzes and adze blanks, but they're not polished. They don't. We found hundreds of these flakes scattered here on the floor, and they are all pretty big compared to the flakes that you see sometimes, but they don't have polish. And so all of that suggests that they were actually making adze blanks right at this spot, which is pretty unusual. And it's even more unusual that given how much forest is around us, that someone's eye can actually spot this in the woods. But I'm just really impressed with that you found this site at all, because we really, as archaeologists, we don't know these sites in the woods, but it's, again, more proof of the kinds of activities that are still on the ground of what Kanaka Iwi many years ago were doing. The evidence of it is still here if you just pay enough attention.
Yeah.
There's a platform, point of percussion, bulba force on the ventral surface. Flip it over on the dorsal surface, you can see clear as day how some flakes had come off this way and another one had come this way, right? So they're working this from two different sides, to make the top, and so still sort of sharp, but still weathered down there. And so yep, you got the spot. This is it.
This got to be it right.
All right. So this flake right here is a special kind of flake that we call an overshot flake. And I always like to start to orienting people by where the platform is. The platform's that little spot right there. Here's the bulboforest, the ventral surface, and the dorsal surface again. But on this one, what happened is the flake traveled so far that it went to the other side of the adze blank and ripped off the far side of the other adze blank. So right here, you can sort of see exactly how wide their adze blank was. This was one side of it, and this right here was the other side. And so you've got the whole top surface of an adze blank right here. And again, you can see how rough this surface is. It hasn't been ground down yet. And so they're still making adze blanks right here at this site out of this stone.
And the same like now, I brought you guys, but I never bring guys that close by and they're going to be coming.
Right, and we're not going to tell anybody, and we're leaving everything. We're not digging. We're just going to leave everything right here where it was.
Yeah.
And it's a gift, you know, to see this, and we want to make certain that it's still here at this place. But it's just a reminder, almost to everyone, to nana ikekumu. You know, look to the source. You know, look at the place that you're walking. The evidence is still here of what Kanaka used to do and how they used to do it.
Yeah, this is unbelievable, because when the missionaries came, the Hawaiians were still Stone Age. They never had metal to work with. They was working all with stone. And beautiful adze they was making. Beautiful, unbelievable adze that, you know, polished. When the finished product, we're not looking at the finished product, but the finished product came out real beautiful. They had real nice stuff. So I happy, you know, to me this was like on calling. This place called, and it's still calling, and I'm happy about that.